Blog Talk Radio.
So many orphan children, so many widowed wives, so many warrior families have paid the high price. We're here today to stand and say, you're not alone. We'll help you to move on. We're your broken heart soldiers, and we don't question why. We do our duty, our stars and stripes. Our dedication is true to the red, white, and honor all the families of those that won't come home, the wise mothers and children, brave fathers keeping strong. We're here today to stand and say, you're not alone. We'll help you to move on. We're your broken heart soldiers, and we don't question why. We do our duty, our stars and stripes. Our dedication is true to the red, white, and we're your broken heart soldiers, and we don't question why. We do our duty, our stars and stripes. Our dedication is true to the red, white, and blue. To the red, white, and
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to All Fired Up Military Monday. I'm your host, Betty Kilbride. The song you just heard, Broken Heart Soldiers by Coldwater Canyon Band. I am extremely excited to say and let you know that it is number 16 on the Billboard charts. Keep it up, ladies and gentlemen. You got to keep going to iTunes. Download that baby because it's only $1, the price of a candy bar. For every single time that is actually downloaded, 50% of that dollar goes to the Broken Hearts Tour, an American Warrior documentary project. We need as many as possible of you to actually download that. Come on, everybody and their cousin out there has got an iPod and a cell phone and every other MP3 player and every other type of technology that can download music. Got computers. If you're a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardman, or Merchant Marine, that song is for you. That's for America. It's for the military families that are out there that are sacrificing. That song represents you and the fallen who actually gave their lives for the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. We depend on you. We need you to help us. Go to iTunes, type in Coldwater Canyon Band or Broken Heart Soldiers by Coldwater Canyon Band. Download that baby today. Don't procrastinate. Today is the anniversary of a very important military operation called Operation Overlord. It was the Allied invasion of Normandy, occupied Europe, British, Canadian, U.S. forces, merchant Navy personnel, parachuters from 3 different countries went into Normandy, Omaha Beach, Gold Beach, Juneau, Sword, in order to wind up getting back the freedom of the Europeans against the Germans and the Nazis. Take a few minutes out of your day today and make sure that you say thank you to those who gave the ultimate sacrifice during that war, because if they didn't, and if the men that actually went into Europe didn't do their job correctly, we would never have found out about the Holocaust. We would never have been able to combat communism and socialism that was going through rampant throughout Europe. Today we're actually speaking English because of that reason. Make sure you wind up taking a couple of minutes out of your day to say thank you to them. Ladies and gentlemen, there have been articles out there today regarding Corey Claggett, regarding his clemency hearing being, he wasn't given clemency. He was they actually asked his attorney, Tim Parlatore, to come back in December to present a case for parole. I talked to Tim earlier today, and basically what he told me, this is what the process is. They recommended that Corey be brought back for potential early parole. That's not going to happen until December, ladies and gentlemen. But Tim has to wind up standing before the same board as he just stood in front of last week. Now, there's a few different contingencies that are involved in this particular case. While I'm excited that they've actually invited him back for potential parole, there's a lot of different variations that's going on here. Everything has to be contingent between now and December on Corey's good behavior. There's got to be a probation investigation. There's got to be a plan of action put into place for Corey. In talking to Tim today, my main concern is, and Tim and I have had this conversation in the past, my main concern is Corey's well-being mentally. He's got PTSD issues. That's where the anger comes from. So I reached out to a friend of mine who's one of the strategic partners for the Broken Heart Store Project, who is not only an expert when it comes to PTSD issues, so post-traumatic stress. He's also a veteran. And, I reached out to him because of the fact that my concern with Corey coming out is his capability of being able to live a normal life and be a success. My main objective is for him to be a success. Last thing I want to happen is for him to come out, possibly get into school, get into a job or something, and not be able to fulfill his parole objectives to live a normal life. I mean, he's been through hell and back, not only as a soldier in Iraq, but also now, being in Leavenworth for so long and dealing with the mental anguish that he's been going through there. My heart goes out to him every day as I think about it and think about what he's been through and what his family has been through. Being a success when you come out of prison, regardless of how you got there, it's all contingent on a well-thought-out plan. Now, when I reached out to my guest tonight, we talked about it briefly, and that's one of the reasons why I asked him to please come on board, because this isn't just about Corey's case. This is about post-traumatic stress, dealing with the VA, dealing with our returning veterans. There's a lot of different variations with regard to post-traumatic stress. And it all depends on how the person reacts and most importantly, the plan of action that they have with regard to their psychologist or mental health professional. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring on board now Ed Manning, better known as Fuzzy. Fuzzy is like I said, a Vietnam veteran. He's also a clinician, and he's a therapist specializing in post-traumatic stress. Fuzzy, are you with us?
Yes, very much so. I'm here, Betty.
Thanks so much for coming on tonight. I know it was last second, but...
Hey, that's all right. Hey, that's the name of the game.
Yeah, that's true. You know, it's based on issues. That's true. Fuzzy, give us an idea as to what exactly do you do when it comes to when you're dealing with these veterans?
What I do with the veterans is I approach it totally different than the VA does. I don't identify that it's post-traumatic stress. I don't say it's a disorder, it's a dysfunction. It's not a disease. An individual has been put in a situation where their body has been traumatized, and their emotions and their mental faculties cannot accept all that trauma at one time. So something happens. A switch is flipped. The VA looks upon it as, well, we'll just give you a drug and we'll give you a clinical therapy. We won't help you flip that switch back to a normalcy, a normal way of life. And that's what I do. I approach it alternatively. I basically identify it as post-traumatic stress. It's not a disorder. And if we're going to engage you, the veteran, I also want to engage your family members, your spouse, whoever else is involved, because they're dealing with similar issues in dealing with you. You're walking around. You're an explosion ready to happen. And they're walking around in eggshells.
That's very true. That's very true.
And what's happening is everybody has a story, has something to add, this piece of this puzzle, this mosaic. And what I do is identify right off the bat, if your life matters, if you want to turn around, I'm ready to listen, unconditionally, non-judgmentally. You can't say anything that's going to basically disturb me or, make me blush. I've heard it all. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
So it's looking at, okay, fine, just let it rip. I don't care what your language is, how many expletives you have, just let it go. Then we start looking at, okay, I look at a causality. There's something that's driving this engine. And that's what I address. What happens with the VA is all of them have been given this little metric wrench that it's good for everything. Well, if you need a screwdriver and you only have a wrench, I'm sorry, this doesn't work. What I do, I design the tools and the resources for that individual, for the individual family. I don't rely on something that happened yesterday or it's going to happen in the future. I'm only looking at now. And that's all that exists in any type of therapy or any type of therapy treatment.
I have to ask you, Fuzzy, with regard to the VA, I mean, I've dealt with a lot of, psychologists and shrinks over the years with the VA. Majority of them are just civilians. They're not even combat-related psychologists or shrinks. How beneficial can they actually be to our veterans? Because I know that if, the vets come up, they won't talk to anybody that doesn't have a clue. How can they actually wind up getting any kind of assistance if they're not willing to open up to these doctors or these shrinks or psychologists, or these clinicians, when they can pretty much read whether or not they've even got a clue within 10 seconds?
Yes, and let's look at defining a few things. Let's look at defining the 3,500 shrinks that the VA just hired recently. All textbooks learned, and it's don't have a clue on reality or what's going on in today's world. And they're looking at using a DSM manual that's basically cut and dry, black and white. What happened to the active duty personnel, either male or female, on the battlefield, in a duty station, or on board an aircraft, basically could be in a ship, could be wherever. These are things that don't happen. They're not black and white. When they occurred, you have to get through in there and peel away the layers and help the veteran go through the process. What actually happened? What's the story part? What had they basically made up? There's a part of the story they made up. There's a part that's true, and it's separating all those pieces of the puzzle. And it's getting a therapist that's alternative, that has the patience, the knowledge, and the expertise to see through all of this and basically work with them to open it up. You're looking at two different aspects. You're looking at the therapy side and the recovery side. The therapy side is to heal the pain of what occurred. Mm-hmm. The recovery side is what's going to happen is they're going to get involved in some addictions: alcohol, drug abuse, spousal abuse, raging anger, thoughts of suicide, to suppress the pain. What I do is I work with those individuals and say, let's work on the therapy side and look at addressing the pain. I know you want to suppress it. It's overwhelming you, but how can we redirect that? It's there. How can we just shift gears? It's no different than you being on the front line day after day or going through basic training. You put up with a lot of stuff for an end goal, to get home or get through basic training. It's the same process. What we're going to do is look at how can we shift this, looking at an end goal of you turning that pain around and using it to your advantage instead of your disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's very important that, that a lot of these returning vets, I mean, I tell them all the time because they're always saying, oh, I can't wait to go home and get a beer. The first thing I tell them is, all right, suck down one beer, go to sleep for 12 hours, wake up the next day, and then have a plan of action to move forward. Don't get drowned in the alcohol. Don't get drowned in the medication. I can't stand the VA for giving out these placebos and these bottles of pills that just don't do anything.
Well, they don't do anything, and also I talk to and deal with so many vets that are coming home, and they're saying they're just beginning overwhelmed. Everybody wants to do everything for them. Everybody wants to have a party, and so many of these vets are saying, chill, just back off, I just need to be alone. Can we just back this off about 3 clicks and allow me to engage with what you want me to do or how you want to contact with me one at a time. Yeah. So many of them are overwhelmed. Yeah.
And that's where I think it actually comes into play. Like you said, I mean, I've had a lot of vets that I've talked to over the years, telling me, hey, sending me messages from overseas, because they know I'm in communication with the family, and the family's like, oh, I can't wait for them to come home. We're going to have a party the same night they come home. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the same way. It's like, whoa, no. Give them at least a week. Let them get acclimated. Let them find out where the toilet paper is. Let them go raid the refrigerator. Give them time to decompress. Then do a party after the fact. Let them find out who you are again before you go doing this.
And throwing the party, get them involved in the planning of their party.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't leave them
let them have
out.
A little bit of control.
And if the party needs to be over a week, over 2 weeks, fine. Maybe it needs just to be a slower pace versus this 8-hour free-for-all, and you've got 100 people.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. Too much noise, too many people. From dealing with the Las Vegas complaint, I even know when I first came home from Iraq, I didn't want to be around people.
Mm-hmm. No, you know.
I wanted to have at least a few weeks myself when I came home, and I wasn't really that much into what these guys and gals have gone through. But I found myself personally, it was like, I shouldn't be out in public because if somebody wound up dropping a beer bottle, I flinched. The first night that I was out, actually, I was driving down the road by the Pentagon and stopped at a light. It was after midnight, and there was lightning hit through the sky with thunder. And my foot hit the gas pedal, and I went through a red light and got stopped by a cop. I didn't realize that I had that kind of a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, that shocked me because normally that doesn't bother me. I had no idea. So I could just imagine what the guys and gals go through. Driving down the middle of the street, 100 miles an hour, that kind of stuff.
It's almost like the individuals have gotten like a prescription set of sunglasses they're wearing. It's filtered.
Mm-hmm.
It's how they see their world, how they see themselves. And amongst that is a lot of anger, is a lot of rage. And it goes in so many different directions. It goes into night terrors, nightmares. It gets into isolation. It gets into thoughts of suicide. It gets into numbness. I can't feel myself. Just loss of memory, loss of muscle coordination. It gets into a lot of different things. And what we have to start looking at is, I love this quote by Buddha: you will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger.
Yeah, that's true. Very good quote. Very good quote. Very good quote.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And it's looking at the vets coming home, and they've been in a tremendous amount of stress on the front line. They haven't been able to share their emotions, their feelings, or everything else. Just go out and shoot the bad guy. Just go do your thing, and come back. And we don't want you to talk about it. And just go out and do it again. Oh yeah, we forgot. We're going to give you 15 or 20 more pounds of armor and a couple more batteries to carry around. And it's only supposed to be 118 tomorrow, and a sandstorm. But that's okay. We know you can do it.
Yeah, the adrenaline is rushing. It takes 3 years for the adrenaline to subside in your system. And that adrenaline running through your system pretty much reprograms your brain. You got to let that stuff decompress.
Well, the brain chemistry changes, and actually there's a chemical change in the brain due to the amount of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens, you start seeing things, thinking different thoughts that you would never come into your psyche before. You start reacting differently. It's almost like you're coming home to a loving family, loving parents, and you're just trying to push them away as fast as you can.
Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to deal with the loss, God forbid, if you lose them, because you've just lost a half a dozen of your buddies.
Well, it's losing them, and it's just they're overwhelming you. They want to hug and care for you and love you, and then say, okay, fine. I know where you're coming from, but it's too much too soon. Yeah. And families are saying, well, when's going to be the right time? Without a good therapist and a good alternative therapist that can help you process through that and process with the family, I'm a firm believer in one-unit therapy, the veteran and the family together.
I agree.
And you're walking them through that. You're allowing the family to see what the veteran's going through, and you're allowing the veteran to see what the family's going through. The learning experience on both sides. Then it's an easier process to start to meld together and bring the pieces of that puzzle together. If you're going to do two different therapies, processes, or sessions different from each other, you're talking about lengthening the process, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, prolonging the outcome. You know, one of the major problems that I'm concerned about and worried about is Corey Claggett's case.
Yes, definitely. And I think what needs to happen with Corey is that he needs somebody in there, his corner, that's going to be able to read in between the lines. Somebody that's an intuitive, somebody that can see and realize what's going on, what he's experiencing without words.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to be able to put into words what he's experiencing or what he has experienced in the past. What happened at the battlefield, what happened in prison, what happened in the court system, what happened because he was isolated from his buddies. And there's a lot of different issues that Corey has to kind of dance through. And I don't think Corey has got the skills and abilities to do that. He's a smart guy, but this is a new battlefield for him.
Yeah, exactly. You know, one of the concerns that I have is because of the fact that he was discharged from the Army. You know, that happens when you get incarcerated.
Yep.
You know, they give you a dishonorable discharge. And it's going to be an amazing fight to even get that upgraded even to a general discharge. That's going to probably happen after the fact. What I'm concerned about is I want him to be a success upon his release. And my main concern is if he comes out, he's got PTSD issues. It's already, clinically put down in paper, psychologically wise, where he needs to have mental health treatment. He can't get it through the VA because he's now out of the VA system because he's technically been dishonorably discharged. So that puts him into the civilian world. How in God's name are we going to be able to get him the assistance that he needs in order to heal properly, to be a success? I don't want Corey to wind up getting into a situation where somewhere, somehow down the line, he's, working at McDonald's flipping hamburgers and something happens and he wigs out and he gets fired, then he's a failure. The system is going to fail him.
I think it's going through a process and saying, okay, looking at Corey and looking at a lot of different examples that I've had in the past, different servicemen, servicewomen, and saying, okay, under an ideal situation, what's needed, and I think what is needed is a care facility for Corey. It's almost like a one-click system where he only has one phone number and it provides him all the different resources he needs. I think he's going to need some upfront therapy, some basically a daily routine of working through the anger, whether it's doing something physically, something mentally, something emotionally, a process to work through that anger, to take the edge off. If you don't take the edge off with Corey, is that what it does is progress into addictions, alcohol, drug use, raging, anger, abuse, self-abuse. It's looking at if we can start working toward just taking the edge off on a daily basis and getting him to realize somebody does care about him and somebody wants to help him turn that around. And post-traumatic stress, you never, ever get rid of it. What you get to a point is in your life, it becomes something that is not driving your life. It's always on the periphery. You're no longer at the effect. You've taken control of your life. You're now driving the vehicle. If it comes up, you basically just pull the car over the side of the road and say, okay, fine, have at it, because you're not going to affect me. You're not going to get me to do anything. And and if the thing goes 90 seconds, 150 seconds, whatever, get to a point and says, I'm sorry, but time's up. I got things I want to do in my life. It's always going to be there. And it's you getting control and having a therapist and family members help you walk through that process. And friends and individuals that have the courage and the guts to say, I'm going to work with you. There's not going to be any prejudice. There's not going to be any judgment. And we want the best for you, but it's going to be a process. It's not a destination. We can't put a stopwatch to this thing.
Yeah.
A lot depends on Corey. And a lot depends on Corey in a sense, how strong are those care providers?
Yeah, it's just getting the right care providers to surround him and for him to actually call on them.
Yeah.
When he starts feeling the anxiety or the depression or the withdrawals or, the possible, see, what I'm worried about is the fact that if, God forbid, in his mental capacity, mental state, that if he turns around, and something happens, no fault of his own, because he's trying. I know he's probably going to try his damnedest upon his release. He's going to do everything he possibly can. But because of the fact that there have been anger issues inside Leavenworth, God forbid if it comes out and something happens and his parole is revoked, and they just tell him, hey, you're going back to Leavenworth, he's not going to go. And I'm fearful of that. I'm fearful of the fact that he might wind up taking that next step. I don't want to see that happen. I want to do everything possible to prevent that. I don't want him to be another casualty of war, by possibly taking his own life. Because I don't want him to wind up getting drunk, take pills, do whatever. I mean, he's pretty much going to have to come home into a clean environment, is he not? Just to make sure of that?
He's going to have to come home in a clean environment, and it's almost in the sense that you have to educate those individuals in that environment he's coming into.
Yeah.
They have to have the skills and the abilities to support him. They can't be doing their addiction things, and they can't be codependent, and they just can't be there on a part-time basis. He needs a strong support network of hands-on individuals and several layers of backup that have different roles and different responsibilities.
Yeah.
Because he's going to come out, he's going to be a live cannon, and he's going to try to push people away as fast as he can. And you have to be strong enough to say, hey, I ain't stepping aside. I'm going to be right here. And a lot of therapists don't have what it takes to do that.
Because they're not combat vets. They don't have a clue.
They don't have a clue, and plus a lot of them, they gained all their information and all their resources out of a textbook. Yeah, they have no practical experience. No practical.
I mean, that's why I was glad. That's why I was glad when I talked to Tim today that the clemency board or the board of examiners that he went up in front of, there were a couple of changes on the board. Somebody actually on the board actually has got combat experience, which was really, a plus in Corey's case. And I think that person might have actually been the driving force to say, hey, we got to relook at this. There's extenuating circumstances with this case. It's not just about one guy. It's about the chain of command. I've been there. I've been boots on the ground. It's a totally different scenario over there. We need to really look at this. Forget about clemency. We need to wind up, giving this guy an opportunity for parole. I was excited today when I got a couple of messages from people saying, hey, you're semi in the loop. Are you tracking this? Is this true? And, I read a couple of articles and stuff, and I was like, I know the legal realm. I was in the legal field for a number of years, and I was like, you don't go for clemency and get parole and go home the next day. It doesn't work that way. There's a process that needs to go through it. So that's why I went to the horse's mouth and called Tim Parlatore. And, of course, my gut feeling was right. There is a process that has to go through. And Tim is going to be busy putting this plan of action together from now until December to make sure that the plan is foolproof. The only problem that's going to be is it's going to be up to Corey. And as much as he wants to be free, we've got to wind up rallying behind him and get him as many resources as possible. And that's why I reached out to you today, because
thank you.
Combat vet,
It's just Corey is just the tip of the iceberg. There are several members that are in prison, being held, and want and need to be released.
Yeah.
And what happens when you're in Leavenworth, if you're military personnel, from the time that you step in those gates, you are tormented by the guards.
Yep.
And they don't let you.
Yeah, and that bothers the living daylights out of me, too, because those are military personnel, too. They're in uniform.
Yep.
And they're being judgmental and tormenting the living hell out of those guys.
Yep.
Whatever happened to taking care of your own? Find out the facts first before you wind up, tormenting. And that's pretty much what they're doing to Corey.
Mm-hmm.
They're tormenting the daylights out of him. To me, that's abuse. That shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I have treated a couple of guards from Leavenworth.
Really?
Yes. And they have their own demons.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah. I don't understand it. That's what. I've never been behind bars like that. Like these guys have gone through. I guess I'm too much of a goody two shoes. But I know people that are guard members. Various different installations around the country, and half the stuff that I've been hearing coming out of Leavenworth, when I tell them, they're like, "That's criminal. They shouldn't be doing that. They're not allowed to do that. They're under the UCMJ too." Yeah. That's like that's the same exact scenario that's going on in Leavenworth, except there's no pictures.
Well,
same kind of mental torment.
What's happened with the UCMJ is this, over the period of time, it has been null and void. They have not got it. It doesn't have any teeth anymore. Yeah. And what's happened is that we have a large faction of the females in uniform, 19,000 plus sexual assaults on the books.
Yep.
And the Pentagon and the DOD and the VA are saying, well, how do we know? And just, hello? Did it exist? Come on now, guys. Let's look at it realistically.
Yeah, I did a show a few months ago about military trauma, sexual trauma on females. Yep. And I was surprised when I wound up contacting the VA. They said that 44% of the females in the VA system have reported military sexual trauma. And when I talked to my JAG people in Washington, they said only about 2% of the cases that are brought forward on sexual trauma or rape ever go to proceedings, because unfortunately there's way too many buyer's remorse going on within the military.
I
got a lot of backlash on that particular show too, because being a female, they automatically assume that I'm going to be 100% behind it. But I've seen it myself. I've seen it where females in uniform wind up, being a little cock tease. They finally get the guy, no problem. They go to bed with him. The next day it's buyer's remorse. Ooh, rape. No. That ain't going to cut it.
Well, it's some on the other side, too. I think there's been a lot of situations where this has happened where it's not being reported and it goes right along with don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
And that's been repealed. But what's happened is now that there are so many sexual predators out there, the military does not do a good job in screening when they have these individuals come in, and don't really do a background check. Mm-hmm. So you don't know what you're getting.
It's getting to the point now that we need to start doing psychological tests on both male and female to see are they right in their head before they even come in the military.
Oh yeah, I love that. During Vietnam, they lowered the standards so they could bring more people in.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, because it was a pretty much supply and demand type of thing. But even now, I mean, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of warriors out there that are coming home that are dealing with the trauma. They're refusing to go get help because they're going to be blackballed within the military, the Guard or the reserves. And then then you've got individuals that figure, hey, this is a good opportunity for me to claim PTSD so I can get the freebies. Those are the people I can't stand.
Well,
those are the people that are taking away resources, overwhelming the entire system to ensure that when it finally comes down to it, you don't have PTSD with regard to the military. You got PTSD because you're flipping out of your mind, because you're just too damn lazy. You don't want to wind up doing something. You don't want to take care of yourself. You don't want to wind up getting help. And you play the good game, but unfortunately, when somebody winds up pegging your game and says, "Hey, you're a liar. You're a thief. Get away. You're taking away from soldiers and sailors and Marines and airmen and Coast Guardmen that really need the help. You're part of the problem."
Yeah,
that's happening way too much.
Yeah, I love what the.
I know the VA wound up instituting a program where, you have to wind up going through a little bit of a class.
Mm.
Yeah, you say the wrong word, especially in the Vietnam vets. I mean, I've got a lot of Vietnam vets within my network, and they told me that they've gone into classes and a guy, this little rap session thing, and a guy starts spouting off crap and, really, what unit were you with? And when were you there? By the way, that's not true. You're a fabricator. You're trying to get something out of the system.
Mm.
They don't even talk the line correctly. Those are the people that I've got a problem with. And now we're coming up with, unfortunately, some that are doing it today. Vets that have been out of the system, out of the service for a long time, coming forward claiming that they've got PTSD when they really don't. They're just looking for a freebie.
Yeah, and it's difficult because some of the individuals that do need the help aren't getting it, and those individuals that are faking it, that want a handout, are basically clouding the issue for everybody else.
And they're harming it for everybody else, too. I mean, it's just like any other social program. You take advantage of the system way too much. You're the problem. You're the reason why that program's not around for the people that really need the help. Which is, look at the medical industry right now. Do you know of any any locations in the South Carolina area? You might want to put your thinking cap on. You probably won't know it right off the top of your head tonight. Yep. But please put your thinking cap on, and any kind of resources that you can possibly think of to help support Corey. Let us know, please, because I want Corey to be a success.
Oh,
on
definitely.
His release. The kid's a phenomenal artist. I mean, oh my God, he's a phenomenal artist. Definitely want this kid to come out and be a complete 100% success story, and not fall through the cracks. God forbid.
And I think so much of what has happened is there are different groups through different organizations that I have posted on my website. And I'm finding out that some of these are just weekend type of retreats. There's no follow-up. there's no ongoing process that keeps them from falling in the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad that we don't have enough volunteers out there to welcome our veterans home and get engaged. You don't have to be engaged on a full-time basis, but you can volunteer. You can therapists can get involved. Other individuals can get involved and create a network.
Yeah.
So we don't burn out people. And I think over a period of time developing this network, because we're looking at bringing home all the rest of the troops that are overseas now within a couple of years, per se.
Yeah.
And we're looking at this huge wave that's going to come in. We have no network set up. How are we going to deal with it?
And the VA doesn't have it. My main concern is those that are not in the VA system, like, the Guard and Reserves, and the guys that have already been out of the system already for a couple of years who plan to go back. They're the ones that need the help the most.
Yes.
Because they have no network. Active duty side of the house, as you know as well as I do, that they have a network in place. They watch people on a daily basis to see who's getting ready to wig out, who's doing the excessive drinking, who's doing behavior that is not the norm to what their normal everyday behavior is. And unfortunately, the Guard and the Reserve, they come back, they get demobbed, they go home. There's no more unit. There's no more support system. There's nobody for them to talk to. This is where we're coming into problems. And, the wives, the poor wives and the spouses and the families just don't have a clue. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They're seeing their spouse flipping out.
Yeah, I get so many
comments. And then they call 911.
Yeah, just individuals on the blog and saying, "Oh, my husband flipped out again, and he wants to go down, and we don't want him to drink anymore, so he's experimenting with weed now. He wants to see if marijuana is going to do it for him, or that he's only going to drink 3 days a week."
Yeah. Oh, that's not good. That's not good at all.
No.
Alcohol does not fix the problem. It exacerbates the problem.
It exacerbates the problem, and that you end up doing is pushing people away, alienating yourself, pissing people off that can actually help you, and you wake up one day and there's nobody there.
Yeah. With regard to the alcohol, my brother, I think I've told you before, my brother was a Marine in Vietnam, Tet Offensive time frame. And, up in the Quezon area, Hill 81 area. Yep. And, he was with India, 326. I mean, he was in some heavy duty firepower during Tet. Mm-hmm. And, you know the history, and a lot of my listeners know the history of Quezon. One of the things I remember him saying years ago, I was a kid when he came home from Vietnam, and I remember it was 4th of July, and we're all sitting out in the backyard of a friend's house, and fireworks went off. He was under the table within a matter of seconds. Mm-hmm. I'm a kid. I had no idea. I think back about it now, and my heart just breaks because I feel so stupid of not realizing what my brother was going through. Here he is, hitting the deck underneath the damn picnic table, and I'm laughing at him, going, "What's the matter? You afraid of a little bit of fireworks?" I had no idea. Now I understand, and I've since apologized to him for that. But one of the things that him and I talked about when I came home from Iraq, as well as in the past, a lot of vets feel like they've become Superman when they drink. Indispensable. Nothing can harm them, nothing can hurt them. And I never understood really why he used to say, "Oh, he's going through his Superman phase," until I came home. And he knows I don't drink alcohol. Mm-hmm. But he had made a point of making that comment. Make sure you don't go into your Superman phase. And I kind of looked at him strange, going, "Huh? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Don't be drinking any alcohol." And I'm like, "I hate this stuff. I don't like it. I don't go near the crap." I would have to be dead before I wind up doing any alcohol.
And I've tracked individuals, 18 to 25-year-olds, and basically they think they're invincible. They can drive 150 miles an hour down the road, jump off a cliff, no parachute, and they're the most reckless individuals in our society. Once you get them over that, they kind of calm down a little bit. But what happens is you drink alcohol, 18 to 25-year-old people, oh, geez, they're unstoppable.
Yeah. Well, there's been a few returning heroes that, have gotten drunk, gotten on a motorcycle. I remember one case of the poor guy, has a wife, has a brand new baby, got on the motorcycle looking for the adrenaline rush, had a little bit too much to drink, went down the road, had an accident, bike flipped, and he got entangled in barbed wire and died. He died on the scene. I mean, the barbed wire pretty much strangled him to death. He was a guardsman. He was a National Guards guy, and he had no life insurance, no health insurance. He had just gotten back to work. Financially, the family wasn't back on their feet. And here he survives Iraq, and unfortunately, now his wife and his child have nothing to fall back on because he was reckless. He wasn't thinking. And that's one of the things that I'm worried about with a lot of these returning warriors doing the same thing. So I keep doing these shows to help spread the awareness and the word. I'm worried about Corey with that, too.
I see so many of these individuals coming back, like Corey and some of the other individuals, that they've got a tremendous build-up, and they come back with these specialties. They're an artilleryman, or they're a marksman, and aren't able to get a job because, there isn't too many people out there hiring marksmen or artillery personnel. And what I do is I work with those individuals and saying, what did it take to operate your piece of artillery? Did it take physics, calculus, projectile shells, different temperature, different times of the day, different weights of shell? So what did it take? The same thing with the sniper. What I do is I work through with them and saying, okay, fine, let's just jot down some of these skills. And I'm saying, if you're an entry-level individual at mid-level management in aerospace, come on now.
Yeah, convert that talent into the civilian world. I've helped people. I've helped military personnel coming out of active duty transferring their resume into the civilian world many times, and. They're surprised because I put them through 5 or 6, maybe sometimes 8 hours over the course of a week, conversations. And they're like, come on, I just gave you, I'm like, no, what you gave me was a 3-line entity of what you did in the military. We got to transfer that to the civilian world. First of all, what do you want to do? Let's transfer what you've done in the military and convert that into civilian language to get you a job. And it's been very successful. One guy that used to work at NSA, half the crap he did he couldn't even speak about. But wound up helping him convert his resume. He's going from a $50,000 a year job. I helped get him a $160,000 a year job on the civilian side.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And he was like, oh, my God. He says, I owe you. And I'm like, no, you don't. You don't owe me squat. You paid me, the couple of $100 to convert your resume.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah.
I can look at somebody's entire military, jacket, their I Love Me book, and transfer it pretty much in a heartbeat. To transfer it into a civilian resume for them to help them get a real job. But a lot of these guys don't have that talent, and unfortunately, there's people out there that take advantage of them.
Oh, I just
charge them $500 to $1,000.
Well, I just had somebody click on my blog today, and I followed through the link, and it's a group of vets that had started hydroponic gardening and basically feeding the country on a low water base, and in a sense keep your bills down, and to have a whole system where they teach you. It's in Southern California. And it's
nice.
I went to the website today, and they have a whole program, and they will basically help you to get started. They have a whole entire program. And I love
fabulous.
That. It's taking entrepreneurs that are vets and saying, hey, I want to share my talents, I want to share my skills with you and help you.
But see, that's also that kind of talent. I like that hydroplane because that takes the anxiety and puts that anxiety into a calming sense that helps somebody actually decompress. They can do that on their own. They can actually wind up decompressing psychologically and at the exact same time rebuild their strength while they're doing something productive and seeing it grow.
Well,
it helps them emotionally.
Well, it helps them emotionally, and what you're doing is something like this, the gardening thing. You're getting little wins every day. You're having little successes, and that's what it takes in a recovery process. It's not the big things that happen. It's what happens every day, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes that helps you to transition away from the battlefield and to a life that you're starting looking around at civilian individuals around you and saying, I got a better life than they do.
Exactly.
I'm better off.
Exactly. Fuzzy, I thank you so much for coming on tonight. We're getting ready to run out of some time here. I thank you so much for jumping on board tonight and discussing this. We're going to have you come back on again. We're going to have to get more into other possible entities that people can actually convert that anxiety and that stress and that the horror into something like this, where they can actually have, successes, small little tiny ones, every single day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. What's your website, by the way? Let's make sure everybody's got your website address.
It is ptstreatment.com.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's www.ptstreatment.com. Make sure you wind up going there and give Fuzzy some feedback on the show and on his talent. Again, he's a Vietnam vet. He's been there, done that, so he knows exactly what these guys and gals are going through. Fuzzy, thanks a lot for coming on. We'll talk again real soon. Thanks.
All righty, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative that we wind up coming up with a viable plan for Corey Claggett and for other warriors for success. They deserve it. They've gone through hell and back for us, for freedom, representing this country under the American flag in a foreign country. They deserve our strength. They deserve our prayers. They deserve every possible entity that we can give them for those little tiny successes. Like I said, I'm excited that Corey's got the opportunity to come up before the parole board in December. Don't bail on him. He needs you now more than ever before. He needs your strength. Anyone has any ideas with regard to civilian capabilities to help him in the South Carolina area, contact me, contact the show, contact Tim Parlatore, his attorney. Information is out there. Contact us. We want to be able to make sure that we have a complete support staff, support entity for him in a very powerful network. Ladies and gentlemen, this is All Fired Up Military Monday. I'm your host, Betty Kilbride. For all those wearing the uniform of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, and Merchant Marines. Don't forget the Merchant Marines, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for putting the uniform on every day. You make this humble American very, very proud to be an American every day of my life. To those in my family who are in uniform serving around the world, way too many of you. Aunt Betty loves you, and you're in my prayers every day. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. God bless America, and God bless our troops. Have a great night, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you again next week here on All Fired Up Military Monday.